Hi everybody, this is going to be a short series perhaps on individual classical records, rare, unusual, excellent records. The first one, and there's only going to be one, if you want to see more, you'll have to go elsewhere or go and look at my other videos. It's going to be a short video and we're just going to discuss this record. George SZELL and the Cleveland Orchestra, Mahler's Symphony No. 10 and Richard Strauss's Death and Transfiguration. Columbia, original stereo. Always love seeing that, of course. I've said it many times. SAX 2488. Blue and silver label. And this one actually has the remains of a factory sample sticker. I picked it up for £2 the other day in a charity shop. Now it sells for £250 to £500 all day long the last few years. So it's a nice record to find. However, you pulled it out in the shop and like, oh, there's scratches on it. Scratches on a classical record. You think, oh. Oh well, I can handle a certain amount of surface noise, etc. on classical, like we all can to some degree. But some of the quiet passages, you don't really want it. However, the scratches on this do not sound at all. I'll never be able to sell it because people want near mint. But this sounds absolutely superb. The scratches don't make a single sound. I'll play a little bit of it in a moment or two. The reason it sounds so good is not just because the engineering in those days was absolutely top drawer, world class, amazing quality, the ingenuity of the engineers and producers of that time as well, with such limited equipment. It's absolutely staggering, some of the records that they released. This one is really helped by being recorded in the Severance Hall in Cleveland, and you can see how small the orchestra is in comparison to this hall, and you can imagine the sound coming out of here and filling the room. It must sound amazing in that place. Now, Death and Transfiguration was written by Strauss in 1888, 1889. And what he did was he actually wrote some words first about a man who's dying. He's on his deathbed, as the title suggests. He's sick, he's not well, he's dying. And he writes some lines. I'm going to read a few of those lines. He wrote them first before the music. I'm just going to read at the beginning, and there's just a little bit here. You'll get an idea of where he was coming from with this. A sick man lies upon his mattress in a poor and squalid garret, lit by the flickering glare of a candle burnt almost to its stump. Exhausted by a desperate fight with death, he has sunk into sleep. No sound breaks the silence of approaching dissolution, save the low, monotonous ticking of a clock on the wall. A little bit later, but death will not long grant the victim sleep and dreams. Dreadfully it plucks at him, and once again begins the strife. And the music echoes this. So obviously he's interpreting these words musically. Later on, he's weary of struggling with death, reft of sleep in a delirium of fever. He sees his life unrolled before him. And the very end, he says a little bit, he says, but the very end, there we go. But now from on high, I'll get that, sounds of triumph. What here on earth he sought in vain, from heaven it greets him. World deliverance, world transfiguration. So it's very Gothic, isn't it? It's very of its time. It's very Victorian in a sense. Obviously it wasn't English, but very that period. A kind of romantic idea. And when you look at a lot of old silent films, that was still residual in the kind of the culture of drama and theatre and society. Now, that was all imaginative, of course. Mahler's work is a very different beast. It's has a more of an elegiac quality. He knew he was dying. He had heart problems. He also never wanted to reach the 10th symphony because in the Victorian time, or in the 1800s, 19th century, I'll say, it was seen as like you don't want to get to the Ninth Symphony because you're never going to make a 10th. There was a huge kind of fear about it, a dread amongst composers, and inevitably they didn't get to the 10th. And the same for him. This is just part of a symphony. It's the first movement and a fragment of the second. And it was kind of constructed and compiled after he died. He did work on 5 movements, but he didn't complete them. He knew he was dying. He knew he didn't have particularly long to live. He died at the age of 50. So it was very resonant in his thinking. And the music really reflects that. Not in a morose, kind of overly melancholic way at all, but there's a real sort of elegiac tragedy sort of element to it. But again, it has a lightness to it. It's not morose and dark and despairing, and yet there's a sort of thread through it, which is he knows it's coming, and you can almost feel it coming. He didn't, in my opinion, he didn't need to write 5 movements. The first movement perfectly encapsulates what he was going through, I think, and it really just sums it up. It just sums up where he was at, and he didn't need any more. Had he have written more, it might have become a bit over the top and all over the place. He might have been reflecting on all sorts of other stuff, and it may not have worked, I don't know. But it works just as the one movement. However, I'm just going to just briefly, because time is marching on, play a little bit of the first of Death and Transfiguration to give you a sense of the sound. Hopefully it'll come across. It's quiet passages, but I'll just play a couple of the sort of louder moments. You get an idea, hopefully, of some of the drama and the sound of that record. I mean, an astonishing sounding record. I'll see if I can just get to the last few bars of the first movement here of Mahler's 10th. And I think they kind of sum everything up so beautifully. So I'll just drop it in and we'll see. Just play it to the end of that movement and you'll get an idea of what I mean, I hope. And that was just a little flyer there, which was in the record. Very rare to find this, very rare. It may not mean a lot to a lot of people, but you know how it is. Nah, I don't know. It's hard to describe. I think my words have been completely, you just haven't got the words. And that's the problem. Sometimes you just have to listen to the music. And just that subtle finality. It's almost like a resignation and an acceptance. And it's over. Anyway, that's it. I went for longer than I anticipated, and I'm sorry if I was garbled and all over the place. But I may do another one of these soon. See you all later.